Here's a guy who thinks he has a new argument for religion.
Hey everyone, I want to start off by saying that I do not mean to offend anybody with this video.
Why would this offend anyone?
I actually want to thank you. Not everybody would click on a video like this, so I can tell that you're likely a very open-minded person. So you have my respect. Just in case people ask, let's start off with a definition. Think about the question, what is it like to be John? This is asking what the subjective experience of John is like. So when I say you, I'm just talking about the subjective experience watching this video.
Which one? Did you only ever expect one person, one subjective experience to watch this video?
As in you, right there. Pretty simple. Now for the fun part. If I revealed that right behind you, I had just created a perfect clone of your body. Then I said somebody had to die. Which body would you prefer get shot?
Well, if it is truly a perfect clone, including my exact personality and all of my memories, then it would be arbitrary. The only difference between the two of us would be the few experiences we had in between the time the clone was created and now. This is like the issue of identity that people bring up about the transporters in Star Trek. When you get into one of those things, the transporter scans your body, disintegrates it, and then recreates it on the surface of whatever planet to which you're beaming. This idea is uncomfortable for some people because one way you could frame what is happening is that the transporter is unaliving you and recreating a perfect clone of you on the surface of the planet. There's nothing objectively incorrect about that framing. You could think of it as the real you being unalived and replaced by an exact facsimile. Neither way of thinking about this is correct or incorrect. There is no fact of the matter with respect to whether the body that is reassembled on the planet is or is not you. This is because the identities that we place on things are inventions. Identity is not inherent to anything. It is bestowed, and we have a lot of flexibility with respect to how we bestow it. This is the gist of existentialist philosophy. The fact that we used to define a planet in such a way that Pluto met the concept's qualifications, and now we define what a planet is in such a way that Pluto no longer qualifies as one, shows that we can define and redefine concepts to suit our conveniences. There is no planetness inherent to any object we have ever called a planet. We bestow the identity of planet onto these objects, and we bestow every other identity onto everything that we identify, including ourselves and each other. If you clone me, it would not be objectively correct or incorrect to identify both the older body and the newer body as me. If I thought about the scenario that way, then you are unaliving part of me regardless of which one gets shot. There is no objective reason to value one over the other. I know this guy is going to say that your soul is in your original body and not the clone body, but how would this work in a transporter scenario? Does your soul get disassembled and reassembled too? Does it disappear and then reappear when the body is reassembled? Does your soul go to the afterlife and the reassembled body gets a new soul? I don't believe there's any such thing as a soul, and there is no fact of the matter with respect to who the real you is, especially if we're talking about exact perfect copies.
Well, I don't know your answer, but most people have a heavy preference for the other body to be shot. That makes sense to me. I would say the same thing because I want to experience future events.
If I conceive of the perfect clone as part of my identity, then I will experience future events even if my original body gets shot. Think of it this way. Suppose you shot the original body before you made the clone, and the clone is created to have all of the memories of the original body right up to the moment of being shot. Would it really be all that unreasonable to think of that person as having been resurrected? If such cloning were an option and I were to die, I would want you to bring me back to life by cloning me and all of my experiences and memories. You may not conceive of the second body and mind as being the same person, but I would, and I don't think there's anything objectively incorrect about doing so.
And there's clearly one scenario where I look out of the staying body and one where I don't.
That's actually not that clear. As I said, there's nothing incorrect about conceiving oneself as looking out of both bodies.
I have a very strong preference towards one end result, because to me, this is a pretty major difference.
There's a major difference between the living body and the dead one, but those two things can still be parts of the conceptual whole if you choose to conceive of yourself that way.
Let me know if you agree with my preference.
I don't share that preference, no. From the perspective of the clone, it would be like I lived my whole life up to the point of the cloning and then just suddenly appeared behind someone who looks just like me. I don't see any objective reason why either body would have any more claim to being the authentic me than the other.
Now for the actual argument. Let's look at a similar hypothetical, both slightly different contexts. There's the idea that over 7 years of consuming food, you actually become a body of all new matter. You have become the food. This allows us to look at an interesting hypothetical. This time, I reveal that you're in my human factory, and we have a lot of protein bars. Our factory is going to build one single human out of these protein bars. But there's two possible construction methods for building our protein bar person. Regardless of which construction method we choose, it's going to be the same physical end product. It's kind of like if I bought parts for a chair and had two different methods for putting the chair together. But either way, it's going to physically be the same chair. It's going to be these parts from this box in these spots. In the human factory's case, it will either way be these protein bar atoms in this exact composition, in this exact location, walking away at one specific time. Every physical property of the final resulting body will be the same, regardless of which construction method we choose. It won't even be different instances of carbon. It's going to be these exact protein bars used either way. Then everything else currently within our science facility will be incinerated. And just for fun, the burned ashes could be sent into a closing black hole.
What's a closing black hole? What does it mean for a black hole to close? Does this guy think that black holes are actual holes?
Because Stephen Hawking believed black holes can destroy matter/information.
No, he didn't. Any matter that goes into a black hole becomes part of the black hole's mass. It isn't destroyed. It would be quite remarkable if a physicist of Hawking's caliber believed that black holes violate the law of conservation of mass.
Now, if both construction methods have really the same physical end result, you would expect people to not have a preference towards one end result over the other.
Well, I don't have any expectations of people, but I know I would have no such preference.
But surprisingly enough, if you agreed with the intro hypothetical, you will probably have a heavy preference towards one end result.
Well, you said that the end result for both bodies is the same, so one end result is the only option. You're framing one end result as though it's two end results.
At least I do. Now I know what you're saying. How could that be? No way. Why would you prefer one end result over the other if it's physically the same outcome?
I wouldn't.
Is there something besides the physical to make that preference rational?
No, that's why I don't recognize it as rational.
Let's look at what the two construction methods are. Method 1. You consume the protein bars for 7 years and become a body of all new matter. You've absorbed the protein bars and become the protein bar man. You then walk out of the science facility, leaving everything behind to be incinerated. Method 2. You live off of other food for 7 years, then we take the protein bars you would have eaten and instead directly build protein bar man. We build them with the same composition, atoms, memories, location, and time that would have resulted from the first method. Then we release them, incinerating everything left behind.
With respect to the body constructed from the protein bars, I still have no preference. With respect to the body experiencing incineration, I would prefer that not happen whether I regarded that person as being me or not.
Both possible humans have the same physical attributes, but something about the two possible bodies seems different.
Not to me, it doesn't.
We once again have the same difference from the intro hypothetical. I feel like it's pretty clear that in one scenario, you look out of the final body, and in the other, you don't.
That's not clear to me at all. If the final body is continuing with the same memories and personality as the initial one, then in either case, I regard the final body as me.
To me, this is once again a pretty major difference.
To me, it's not.
I have a very heavy preference towards one final result over the other, despite it being physically the same end product.
Let's go back to the transporter example. Lots of people, probably even most, would see the typical way transporters are portrayed as operating, disassembling your body in one place and then assembling it in another place, as relocating your body from one place to another. But let's say it scans your body, then assembles it in the second place first, and disassembles your body in the first location afterward. I think it would be intuitive to many people, maybe even most, that what's going on in that scenario is that a replica of you is being created in the second location, and then the original you is then being unalived. This view doesn't make sense to me, though. The same thing is happening in either scenario, the only difference is the order of events. If we assume that when you transport, your body is being assembled with different but identical matter, then I see no difference worth caring about whether the disintegration happens before or after the assembly in the second location.
If only the physical exists, and the resulting bodies are physically the same, you would expect everything about the final bodies to actually be and emerge the same.
Which is why they are.
But that doesn't seem to be the case.
It does to me. What's the difference?
Another way to explain it is that usually, any difference between two results can be traced back to a difference stored in the final particles. If there's a difference in gravity, then, oh hey, these particles have different locations. I'm proposing a difference between the bodies that simply can't be linked to a stored difference in the final body's particles.
In other words, an imaginary difference.
Because even if I overlooked something and you point to a physical difference in the end product, any possible physical difference can just be removed with a change to the hypothetical. If the difference can't be stored in the final body physically,
then the difference can't coherently exist at all.
Then it must be stored in something besides the physical.
Which makes no sense. To everyone who helps me out on Patreon, you're a big help. Thanks so much.